Yuck! What's that terrible smell?
Dinner! You know, I feel like Thomas has been really critical of me lately. I think it's about time I put him in his place. Well, Thomas, I'd like to see you cook for a change!
You think I won't? It would be great to eat something that's not burned for once. Percy seems to be quite agitated today. What? Was it a bad day at the Mill Depot?
I'm home! Oh my, whatever is that odor?
Why don't you ask Percy?
Oh, so we're going to point fingers now?
Looks like it's another one of those days again. Luckily, I know just what to do. Who wants pizza?
Oh good, something edible.
Okay, that's it! Get over here!
Duck's Pizza, we deliver. Beg pardon, but is this a bad time?
No, not at all.
Caterpillar.
Bossy boiler!
Stick in the mud.
Attention hog!
Old iron.
Station pilot!
Hey everyone, Dennis here, back with another DVD review. In this series, reviewing classic DVDs is certainly not a foreign concept. We saw Thomas and the Jet Engine, which was kinda classic, Races, Rescues, and Runaways, which was a little more classic, but now it's time to review a DVD that's totally classic, Thomas Comes to Breakfast. Although this DVD was definitely a staple of my Thomas childhood, I'd be exaggerating if I thought this DVD stood out to me. It just kinda blended in with the other DVDs in my collection, and I never really thought twice about it. However, now that I've taken a thorough look into the composition of episodes featured here, Thomas Comes to Breakfast is a very unique, borderline convoluted release that I have a lot to talk about. Sit back and relax, people, cause we've got a show to start. Action! Thomas Comes to Breakfast was an American release first available on VHS August 18, 1998, and on DVD February 7, 2006. Coincidentally, this was also the same release date as the last DVD we reviewed. It featured 2 Season 1 episodes and 6 Season 2 episodes, as well as a few extras on the DVD version. I'm a big fan of this release, since it includes a lot of quality classic stories, but the continuity errors throughout the DVD drive me a little crazy. For instance, the end of Thomas Comes to Breakfast is supposed to set the stage for the events of Daisy and Percy's predicament, but on this DVD, they replaced those episodes with the Duck and Diesel trilogy. I can see where one might have mistaken those two plots, since they both involve a Diesel coming to the island, but because of this, I always grew up thinking Diesel came to Sodor because Thomas crashed into the station master's house. Sadly, that's only the start of the continuity issues, as there's a couple randomly added episodes that don't get their plots resolved. Like, they have Off the Rails, but not Down the Mine. They have Trouble in the Shed, but not Tenders and Turntables or Percy Runs Away. When you think about it though, the random selection of episodes may have been because this was a compilation release. Apparently, all the episodes featured on Thomas Comes to Breakfast were taken from previously released VHSs, and they were combined here to create the alleged Behaving Well story collection. I mean, if you think being conceited, spreading lies, and refusing to work counts as behaving well, then this is the DVD for you. I think that's enough about this DVD though, and we've got a lot of ground to cover, so let's get started.
Thomas the Tank Engine has worked his branch line for many years and knows it very well.
Alternate universe much? We're only like 10 seconds in, but this is already so calming.
You know just where to stop, Thomas, laughed his driver. You could almost manage it without me.
From this episode onward, Thomas's driver probably learned not to randomly compliment him so as not to plant any ideas in Thomas's head. You know, maybe that's why Thomas's driver hardly ever talks to him in modern seasons.
Thomas had become conceited. He didn't realize his driver was joking. Driver says I don't need him now. I'd never go without my driver, said Toby earnestly. I'd be frightened. I'm not scared. You'd never dare. I would then.
Also from this episode onwards, Toby probably learned not to dare Thomas at anything, for obvious reasons.
I'll show them. Driver said I could manage without him. I'll just go out and then I'll stop and whoosh. That'll make them jump.
Yes, that's totally gonna work.
Thomas thought he was being clever, but really he was only moving because a careless cleaner had meddled with his controls.
Wait, but didn't Thomas decide to start moving, or did he accidentally start moving the exact moment he wanted to?
He just kept... There was the station master's house. The station master was about to have breakfast.
Yeah, I do. Here you go. Oh, where are the kids today?
Oh, I left them at home.
Hey, where's my present? Oh, your present's right here.
No, I cannot. If you give me the hamper, I can give you the sock.
Horrors, cried Thomas, and shut his eyes. Excuse my intrusion. He peered into the room through its leaves. He couldn't speak.
I like how they don't specify whether he couldn't speak because of the bush or because of the severity of the situation.
The station master was furious. His wife picked up her plate. You miserable engine, she scolded. Just look what you've done to our breakfast. Now I shall have to cook some more.
Yeah, forget that your dining room is obliterated and that you'll have to spend years trying to pay off the repairs. Don't get me wrong, I value breakfast more than most, but that's just crazy.
Thomas felt depressed.
Hey, Psych2Goers.
Then, the Scottish twin engines Donald and Douglas arrived.
I always thought Donald and Douglas's appearances here were awfully random, but not really since they just debuted in the book prior to this one.
Bits of fencing, the bush, and a broken window frame festooned his front, which was badly twisted.
Now that's a lot of damage!
The twins laughed and left him. There was worse to come. You're in a lot of trouble, Thomas.
Yeah, based on the current situation, one would think so.
You must go to the works and have your front mended. Meanwhile, a diesel rail car will do your work. A diesel, sir?
Yes, a diesel, only not the one that chronologically follows the story arc.
Diesels always stay in their sheds till they are wanted. Diesels never gallivant off to breakfast in station masters' houses.
Love the looks of sheer delight on Percy and Toby's faces right here to see Thomas get in trouble.
Duck is very proud of being Great Western. He talks endlessly about it.
Well, they got that right.
There is only two ways to do things, Thomas. The Great Western Way and the wrong way.
The engines were glad when a visitor came.
It's interesting how both main characters of the episode were both introduced by having a rotational view of them spinning on the turntable.
Sir Topham had introduced him. Here is Diesel. I have agreed to give him a trial. He needs to learn.
Diesel laughed. You are wrong.
Good morning, purred Diesel in an oily voice. Pleased to meet you, Duck. Is that James, and Henry, and Gordon, too? I am delighted to meet such famous engines.
More Railway Series references. Nice.
The silly engines were flattered. He has very good manners, they murmured. We're pleased to have him in our yard.
Have you ever heard the saying, be careful what you wish for?
Your worthy Top.
Sir, you're supposed to call him sir.
We are revolutionary. Oh, said Duck. If you're Reva Thingamy, Perhaps you would collect my cars while I fetch Gordon's coaches.
You show him, Duck.
When Duck returned, Diesel was trying to take some cars from a siding. Diesel found them hard to move. Pull! Push! Backwards, forwards!
Okay, that shot is kinda terrifying.
Oh! Oh! The cars groaned.
They sure gave Carlin a lot of freedom in the recording booth.
Diesel lost patience.
Why does Diesel sound like a motorcycle?
Some of their brakes snapped and the gear jammed in the sleepers.
I'm sorry, but how exactly is this car coming off the rails at this angle? It just seems a little impossible to me.
Ha ha ha! Chuckled Duck. Diesel recovered and tried to push the cars back.
Using footage from the wrong scene much?
Thank you for arranging these, Diesel. I must go now. Don't you want this lot? No, thank you.
Somebody just got played.
Why didn't you tell me? You never asked me. Besides, said Duck, you were having such fun being whatever it was you said. Goodbye.
I mean, Duck has a point. Diesel was just trying to show off anyway, so he kinda asked for it.
Diesel had to help the workmen clear the mess. He hated it. Diesel, the new engine, was sulking.
Talk about starting right where we left off.
Duck was horrified. Shut up, he ordered, and bumped them hard.
Oh my goodness, guys, the talking train said a bad word. But seriously, I don't think stuff like this ever impacted me as a kid. If anything, I think I appreciated how unfiltered some of the engines were about expressing their opinions.
We engines have our differences, but we never talk about them to the cars.
Uh-huh. Never.
I see you like jokes. You made a good joke about me yesterday. I laughed and laughed. Duck told me one about Gordon. I'll whisper it.
I love how Diesel's not just a villain, but a smart one, with him pretending to be on the Trucks' side.
We cannot allow it. They consulted together. Yes, they said. He did it to us, we'll do it to him, and see how he likes it.
I really miss the James Gordon-Henry union from this period of the show.
Duck was tired out.
I know this was done so that the audience could see the cars better, but it honestly looks a little bizarre seeing the flatbeds and trucks spaced out so much.
Keep out. Stop fooling, said Duck. I'm tired. So are we, hissed the engines. We are tired of you. We like Diesel. We don't like you. Duck called me a galloping sausage, spluttered Gordon. Rusty red scrap iron, hissed James. I'm old square wheels, fumed Henry.
It's funny how Gordon and James seem vehemently mad about the insults, while Henry just looks personally offended.
Sir Topham Hatt recovered. He'd been trying not to laugh himself. Now, Diesel, you heard what Duck said. I can't understand it, sir. To think that Duck, of all engines, I'm dreadfully grieved, sir, but no, nothing.
Would you really be dreadfully grieved over an engine you just met yesterday, though? Diesel's suspiciously unnatural word choice is so apparent here that I don't know how his ploy wasn't exposed sooner.
I'm sorry, Duck, but you must go to Edward's station for a while. I know he will be glad to see you. As you wish, sir.
Season 2 really has the feels.
Good morning, and welcome everyone to Judge James. Today, we'll be looking at the Duck versus Diesel case, where Diesel is accusing Duck of spreading slanderous lies about his fellow engines to the freight cars.
I'm telling you, I'm innocent. Plus, how are you allowed to be the judge if you got personal involvement in this case?
Order! Order! Wait your turn, Duck. Diesel, why don't you have a start?
With pleasure, Your Honor.
Oh, here we go.
It deeply pains me that a fellow engine could commit such a vile act, to spread such malevolent lies. Just the thought of it is thoroughly disturbing.
Why do you even care? Literally none of this concerns you.
Order! Order! Please continue, Diesel.
I believe the only logical thing to do in this situation is to exile Duck from society for the next 20 years.
What? The plaintiff isn't allowed to decide the sentence of the... Oh, for goodness sake.
Diesel has been telling lies about me and made Sir Topham Hatt and all the engines think I'm horrid. I know you aren't, and so does Sir Topham Hatt. You wait and see.
Edward is honestly such a mentor. The way he sympathizes with Duck just goes to show how friendly he is. Looks like back engine took on a whole new meaning.
Suddenly, it was a conductor's warning whistle. Hurrah! 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 Laughed the cars.
Because those trucks and trucks will get the engines every time.
Hurry, Duck, hurry, said the driver. They raced through Edward Station, but the cars were catching up.
In a weird way, this whole scene is kinda scary. I can't imagine the sheer terror Duck is experiencing right now.
James was just pulling out on their line from the station ahead. Any minute, there could be a crash.
Well, that is certainly inconvenient.
He veered into a siding where a barber had set up shop. He was shaving a customer.
I already knew Sodor's infrastructure designs were questionable, but a track leading straight towards a barbershop? Come on now.
Beg pardon, sir, gasped Duck. Excuse my intrusion. No, I won't, said the barber, and he lathered Duck's face all over.
What exactly was the point of doing that? Just seems like a waste of shaving cream to me.
I appreciate your feelings, said Sir Topham Hatt, but you must know that this engine and his crew have prevented a serious accident.
True, it could have been worse, but does this not qualify as a serious accident?
It was a very close shave. I'm sorry. I didn't know you were being a brave engine. That's all right, sir. I didn't know that either. Sir Topham Hatt watched the rescue operation.
Yay. Now I get to pull another engine out of a building for once.
But sir, they don't like me. They like Diesel. Not now. I never believed Diesel, so I sent him packing. The engines are sorry and want you back.
This is a great ending and all, but I truly wonder how Diesel's scheming came to light. Or maybe it didn't, and Sir Topham Hatt was just like, I don't like you. Leave.
Gordon was resting in the siding. Sometimes he thought, it's really tiring to be such a large and splendid engine. One does have to keep up appearances so.
I find that statement very ironic since Gordon's face looks somewhat horrifying.
Beep, 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 beep. Hello, lazy bones, whistled Henry.
More like...
Beep, 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 beep. Hello, fat face, whistled Henry.
Now that's more like it.
Me, who has never had an accident. Are jammed whistles and burnt safety valves accidents? Asked Percy innocently.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Be careful, Henry. You're not pulling the flying kipper now. Mind you, keep on the rails today. Wake up, Gordon, said his driver. A special train's coming and we're to pull it. Gordon's fire was slow to start, so Edward had to push Gordon to the turntable to get him facing the right way.
Remember when the fact that the characters were steam engines was respected and actually applied to the story?
He moved slowly forward to jam the table, but he couldn't stop himself and slithered into a ditch.
Just like in Thomas Comes to Breakfast, I must inquire if Gordon was able to move forward on his own. It couldn't have been his driver or fireman since they weren't inside of his cab.
So Gordon didn't want to take the special train and ran into a ditch? The special's waiting? Tell Edward to take it, please, and Gordon, leave him where he is. We'll get him out later.
I like how Sir Topham Hatt doesn't immediately send help for Gordon, but rather lets him suffer from his own decision. If it were Thomas, though, he probably would have sent an entire rescue squad within 60 seconds.
Strong ropes were fastened to his back end, and James and Henry, pulling hard, managed to bring him to safety.
I used to think it was an error that James was smiling here, but I think it's just because he's so happy that he has something to make fun of Gordon for. The engines on this island really hate each other, don't they?
Late that night, Gordon crawled home, a sadder and wiser engine.
It would have been nice if they included Down the Mine to finish up this plot, but I guess that episode didn't fit in with their behaving well theme.
Coming up on Dr. Henry, two close companions divided by a quarrel. Can their friendship be saved? Find out now!
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today in the studio we have two close friends working through a troubling argument. Thank you for joining us this morning. Being open to each other is the first step to resolving conflict.
Could you skip the intro? I haven't got all day.
Okay then. First, I'd like you each to take a moment to discuss how you're feeling.
Why don't you start, Thomas? I know how much you enjoy talking over me!
It would be an honor.
Indoor voices, please. Let's have Percy begin.
Well, Thomas's derogatory statements have really been corroding my well-being and self-esteem. He makes me feel like I'm not worthy enough.
And you, Thomas?
Well, Percy doesn't know how easy he has it not having to be the centre of attention all the time. I mean, somebody has to put him in his place.
Most interesting. From what you two have told me, I've gathered some eye-opening information. Percy, the root of your problem seems to be that you take Thomas's unsolicited comments too seriously, and you misinterpret them as personal threats.
Huh, I guess you're right.
And Thomas, your anger towards Percy appears to stem from your jealousy of his less demanding lifestyle. Instead of using proper coping skills, you seem to take the pressure out on your fellow acquaintance.
Wow, I never thought of that. Percy, I'm sorry if I ever took my anger out on you.
And I'm sorry I didn't bother to see things from your perspective.
Can we still be friends?
Of course!
Aww. This just warms my heart so much.
But I mean, were you really gonna serve us that disgusting beef soup for dinner?
Were you ever going to contribute more than 20% of our electrical bill?
Guys, remember all the emotional progress we just made?
No, actually, I wasn't. Not until you admit that I have the better jawline.
Oh, you want to get personal? Because we can make this personal!
It was a beautiful morning on the island of Sodor. Thomas the Tank Engine's blue paint sparkled in the sunshine as he puffed happily along his branch line with Annie and Clarabelle.
I kinda hate how the US title for this episode is Double Trouble. The UK one makes a lot more sense, and the name Double Trouble reminds me way too much of that one season 13 episode.
Hello, Thomas, whistled Percy. You look splendid. Yes, indeed, boasted Thomas. Blue is the only proper color for an engine.
I love how Percy was only trying to compliment Thomas, but Thomas immediately responded with an insult.
Oh, I don't know. I like my brown paint, said Toby. Well, anyway, huffed Thomas. Blue is the only color for a really useful engine. Everyone knows that. Percy said no more. He just grinned at Toby.
If this were CGI, Percy would probably be crying right now.
Those buffers don't look very safe to me. The last load poured down.
Help! I'm choking!
I'm sorry, Thomas, but if you decide to rest right next to a coal hopper, what do you think is going to happen?
Ha ha! Chuckled Percy. You don't look really useful now, Thomas. You look really disgraceful.
And you, Percy, look like you have the time to clean up this mess. Seriously though, it must have taken ages to clear that up. I genuinely wonder what Sir Topham Hatt is saying right here. It's not very often that we see him appear but not speak.
Thomas was grumpy in the shed that night. Toby thought it a great joke, but Percy was cross with Thomas for thinking he had made his paint dirty on purpose.
I love how Toby finds Thomas and Percy's fighting to be entertaining instead of trying to break up the argument.
Oh, wailed Percy. Help! It was time for Thomas to leave. He had seen everything.
I have a hard time understanding how this one piece of narration here gained the internet following that it did. There's so many other meme-worthy statements in this show, especially from Season 5, but I guess the internet favors randomness anyways, so...
That night, the two engines made up their quarrel. Your green paint looks splendid again, too. In future, we'll both be more careful of coal.
As much as I like this episode, I don't like how they make amends so fast. They gave Thomas the whole episode to forgive Percy for teasing him, while they gave Percy like 5 seconds. What, are Percy's feelings not as valid as Thomas's? It would have been nice if they adapted Drip Tank so this could have been avoided, but it's fine.
Edward was getting old. His bearings were worn and he clanked as he puffed along.
I like how this is foreshadowing the events of the other episodes adapted from Edward the Blue Engine, but it's a real shame you can't watch them all in a row on a single DVD. Well, in America.
As Edward clanked by, they broke through the fence and ran across the line. A coupling was broken and some cars were left behind.
I find it crazy that the cows actually ran into the train and caused the last cars to uncouple. I hope they're all okay.
When Gordon and Henry heard about the accident, they laughed and boasted. Fancy allowing cows to break your train. They wouldn't dare do that to us. We'd show them.
I really can't keep a straight face over the expression Gordon is wearing right here. No pun intended.
You couldn't help it, Edward. They've never met cows. I have, and I know the trouble they are.
It sounds like Toby is referencing the events of Bullseye's, but that's impossible since this episode takes place 2 seasons earlier, and the story this episode was based on was written well before Bullseye's was. I guess there's only one logical explanation. Time travel.
It seemed to Gordon that there was something on the bridge. His driver thought so too. Whoa, Gordon!
What, is Gordon a horse now?
What's this? A cow? I'll soon settle her. Be off! Be off!
And the best cow impression of the year in a children's television program award goes to...
That must be Bluebell, said the porter. Her calf is here, looking for her mother.
Okay, so I didn't realize this until doing some research on the wiki, but I came to the tragic realization that the original dialogue from the UK dub of this scene is actually...
That must be Bluebell, said the porter. Her calf is here, ready to go to market.
And yes, by market they mean cow slaughter. Poor Bluebell.
Percy will take her along.
No, stop trying to distract us with bouncy, uplifting music. We know what you're doing to Bluebell.
Bluebell was very pleased to see her calf again, and the porter led them away.
Bluebell, seeing no way out of the situation, obviously decided to leap off the bridge and swim to the remote shores of New Brunswick, a place where cows aren't sent to be mercilessly slaughtered! Maybe I should start a GoFundMe for Bluebell.
Not a word. Keep it secret, whispered Gordon and Henry to each other.
I think Gordon and Henry have lived on Sodor long enough to know that no drama is ever kept secret, especially if it can be used against you.
We stopped so as not to excite her. You see what I mean, my dear Edward? Yes, Gordon, said Edward. Gordon felt somehow that Edward saw only too well.
This last statement went over my head since I thought Edward was physically looking at something, which obviously is not the case given the context of this scene. Narration like this really shows how Classic Thomas was written for older audiences. Please don't ask me what Anchor Bay was thinking when they stuck this episode at the end of this release. I have no idea why they put Percy's introduction episode here, after he appears in the majority of the episodes just shown.
The station master came in. There's trouble in the shed, sir. Henry is sulking. There's no train, and the passengers are saying this is a bad railway. Indeed, said Sir Topham Hatt.
Love how Sir Topham Hatt straight up agrees that his railway is out of control.
We won't shunt like little tank engines. That was Thomas's job.
Thomas's recent absence to run his own branch line kinda comes out of nowhere, since that storyline isn't mentioned in any of the other episodes on this DVD.
You fetch our coaches and we will pull them. tender engines don't shunt. We'll see about that, said Sir Topham Hatt. No engine on my railway is too important for small jobs.
I really like how Sir Topham Hatt is portrayed like a father figure in this episode, and he's very rational when dealing with his engine's stubbornness.
Leave those freight cars, please, Edward, said Sir Topham Hatt. I want you to push coaches for me in the yard. So Edward found coaches for the 3 engines, and that day the trains ran as usual.
Darn it, Edward. I was really looking forward to sitting in the shed doing nothing today.
He went to a workshop and they showed him all sorts of engines.
I sure haven't seen you guys before.
That's the one, he thought. If I choose you, will you work hard? Oh, sir. Yes, sir. That's a good engine. I'll call you Percy.
I always forget that Sir Topham Hatt is the one who gave Percy his name. Is it only engines who are straight from the factory who get named by their owners? Because it seems like Sir Topham Hatt doesn't get to name any of his other engines.
How beautifully you wheeshed him, laughed Edward. I can't wheesh like that. Oh, said Percy, that's nothing. You should hear them in the workshop. You have to wheesh loudly to make yourself heard.
I love how bold, yet naive, Percy is in his introduction. His conceitedness sometimes comes off as annoying, but you can't hate him too much.
Henry, Gordon, and James are sulking. They say they won't shunt like little tank engines. So I have shut them up. There were fewer trains, but the passengers didn't mind. They knew the 3 other engines were having a lesson.
I think I'd still be mad if I were a passenger. I don't think it's a good idea to sacrifice the quality of your railway just because 3 of your engines are being stubborn idiots.
Gordon, James, and Henry were cold, lonely, and miserable. They wished now they hadn't been so silly.
Wow, what a happy ending to this DVD. Not.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Channel 8 News, Sodor's most trusted news source. Today, we'll be starting off with a developing story on a riot occurring outside of Tidmouth. Anchor Toby has details.
Thanks, Duck. We are live outside of Tidmouth, where a group of protesting tender engines are demanding more suitable working conditions.
We won't shunt! We won't shunt!
Would you 3 care to explain what is happening?
What's happening is that our core principles are being extremely violated.
We simply cannot allow this oppressive leadership to dictate our lives.
To force tender engines such as ourselves to shunt is to contradict humanity as we know it!
I can see that you are all distraught about this situation, but none of you have anyone to blame, do you?
Thomas! That dirty rascal left us high and dry only for us to suffer alone.
Just to fulfill that selfish dream of running his own branch line. Yuck!
The audacity of that tank engine! There he is!
Uh-oh.
Get him!
Guys? Guys?
Well, thank you, Toby, for that informative report. Next up, Edward with the weather.
Sadly, there's not a whole lot to say here. Great bonus features were totally a thing in the mid-2000s, but they were mostly reserved for DVDs with new content, opposed to releases that were just reprints of older VHSs. It's a little sad that we aren't given many extras, but honestly, the episodes on this DVD are so good that they single-handedly carry the release, so I'm not complaining. What we are given, much like the rest of this DVD, is admittedly pretty random. We get the song Little Engines, which is no doubt a bop, but it feels a little out of place since it's from season 6, over a decade after these episodes were made. Another thing we get is the character gallery from Thomas and the Really Brave Engines, which, get this, was also released February 7th, 2006. It includes most of the main characters from the episodes on that DVD, hence why Fergus, Duncan, and Donald and Douglas are here. However, unless you happen to know that very specific tidbit of information, you would be very confused as to why this character gallery is the way it is. We also get James Connects the Dots, which is, And finally, as if this DVD weren't weird enough, we get this bizarre read-along that's really its own breed.
Percy wasn't feeling well. Sir Topham Hatt sent him to the train doctor to get better.
What are these drawings? Why is Daisy here? Why are the trucks so tiny?
Diesel growled. Any more teasing and I'll squash you all flat.
And the story ends with them all being friends with Diesel? What? I'm sorry, I just can't. I'm done. Good night, folks. Well, Thomas Comes to Breakfast. You would think that since it's a classic DVD, it would be close to perfect, but you would be very surprised. In terms of episode quality and viewing experience, it's pretty darn good. In fact, better than most. If you don't care about continuity and just want some classic Thomas, then I give this DVD 2 thumbs up. Does this DVD have flaws? Yeah, but it's just a minor result of the distributors making seemingly arbitrary decisions. Honestly, the fact that this DVD has such a unique history has made it a lot of fun to research. This release is by no means perfect, but its quirks are what make Thomas Comes to Breakfast such a great DVD to watch. Well guys, that's all for today's video. I would like to thank all the people who contributed and made this such a fun project. Please be sure to check them out. Stay safe, please subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time.
Bye!